Hello everybody, welcome back to Planet X News. It is April 18th, 2022. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure all of you have seen and heard by now that we have 2, 3, 4 sunspots, all turning towards the Earth. X-flares, coronal mass ejections. The sun is just going wild. I have prepared some really good video footage of these sunspots. You're going to be looking at the upper left quadrant right about here, and you will see all of that activity. Now, there's been a large amount of talk about these sunspots, specifically 2992, or is it 23? Was it 22 or 2392 and 3? I'd have to actually look back and look at the sunspot numbers that they give them. Anyways, they're going to be turning towards the Earth here in the next 48 hours. And they'll be passing by, and the whole situation will be about maybe 4 days that we will kind of be in this target zone. In all my years of watching and analyzing the sun, I have never seen that big of a cluster of sunspots before. And this is kind of unusual. My last premiere video, I did show you guys all of this activity that was occurring on the far side, the back side of the sun, not facing us. Well, now we know where it's coming from. It is producing X-flares, and if you watch over here, you will see kind of like a flash of light and an X pattern, and that's what constitutes these X-flares. These X-flares can be very, very, very powerful. They do produce an astonishing amount of radiation. If directed towards the Earth, well, we receive all of that radiation. On this view of the SDO, you will be able to see this X-flare a little bit better. It kind of forms a little flash of white light, and then you see this little X pattern. Now, back in 2000, I think it was 2017, we had a very large, very, very large X-flare that occurred in the lower position on the western limb of the sun at about the 5 o'clock position, and luckily that was turning away from the Earth. Now, this time around, you know, anything could happen. Now, I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not saying that this is the end of the world and the Earth is going to be destroyed or anything of that nature. But whenever we start to talk about space weather, you know, this is really to educate all of you folks, and that way you understand what is happening. And this is kind of unusual to have that big of a cluster of very, very large sunspots. Now, as they start to rotate across the face of the sun, there are two things that can happen, and I've seen it before. They can stay active, and they could continue to spout off radiation, X-flares, filament releases, or they can completely dissipate. Now, I've seen them before, you know, maybe one large sunspot turning towards the Earth right above the equatorial or the meridian, the middle of the sun, and then just dissipate and just completely go away. This time, I'm not too sure, folks. There are 3 large sunspots. There are some trailing smaller sunspots that are a little further back, and we'll go over all of that information. I have very, very good imagery that I wanted to share with all of you, very crystal clear pictures of these sunspots. And also, as I said in my last premiere video, we would eventually get a pretty good shot of this Planet X stellar core as it was coming upward from the ecliptic. And sure enough, late on the 16th and then going early into the 17th, we were able to capture two phenomenal photographs. One of them is a little weird looking, and we'll go over that shortly here. But what you'll start to see is this huge cluster moving in our direction, right about there, coming up over the eastern limb of the sun. Now I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this video here, and we're actually going to go directly into the photographs. Now I snapped all of these first thing this morning, and you could see 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are small, very, very small sunspots. There's even one way back here. These three here are what we're going to be worrying about. There's some more really cool images of them, and we could zoom in on those and take a good look at them. And they are very, very large. I don't know how many Earths you could fit inside of there, maybe about 5,000 or more, because the Earth would be, well, probably no bigger than my little hand cursor that you see right here. Well, actually, probably smaller than that. And these sunspots are quite large. The next photograph, pretty amazing stuff that we have here. And all the scientists, all the heliospherical scientists, they're all talking about this. I've even I saw a news article on television last night, briefly, talking about these sunspots turning towards the Earth. I don't think that we're going to enter into any type of life-ending situation here, ladies and gentlemen. But these X flares are what we really worry about. They produce a lot of radiation, a lot. And I've talked about this radiation output, many, many times. Here's what the cluster actually looks like now as it's turning towards the Earth. And this is, I would say that's about at the 10 o'clock position right here. And you have a positive and a negative and a positive and a negative to these sunspots. They can dissipate. They can completely disappear in the next 24 to 48 hours, and there will be absolutely nothing to talk about. However, if they don't, and the activity keeps up and keeps going, then we're definitely going to have either an Earth-facing coronal mass ejection or multiple X-flares. So as long as the X-flares stay lower in their number, meaning the intensity, will be completely fine. There is a very high possibility that the intensity can be great. And then, well, it's a shootout from there. But again, phenomenal images that I've captured. Yeah, I was bouncing around with the number up here, AR2993. I couldn't spit it out for some damn reason. But the two main sunspots that they're worried about, 2993, 2994. However, like I said, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. And right through the center here, there is a host of smaller sunspots. And folks, let me tell you something. These sunspots are huge, absolutely huge. They do have the ability to blast off some really, really large coronal mass ejections or X flares. I mean, anything can happen at this time. It's all up in the air. No scientist can tell you, yes, this will happen. No, this won't happen, because we are dealing with the sun, this incredible creature that, as I've said before, the sun can give us life, and the sun can taketh life away in a heartbeat. Real quick, I took some absolutely phenomenal high-definition shots of this, and this is coming from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. This is the 171 angstrom ultraviolet light, and you can see, wow, just look at that. I mean, these large plasma loops, everything just connecting, reconnecting, connecting, reconnecting. It is just a complete collage of intensity that you have right there in that region of the sun. Now, this view here on the 304, this gives you a really, really good view of how large of an active region is there on the sun. And again, that's about between the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock position on the left side of the sun turning towards the earth. And that will be, well, I would say probably within 48 hours, that will be pretty much aligned with the earth. And at that point in time, you know, anything can happen. Again, it could completely dissipate, or it can show us some big time activity, and we will see how the cards are dealt at that point in time. But the images are just really, really incredible. Now, getting to what I captured on two different coronagraphs within a few hours of each other. And I was kind of timing this, and I was watching very carefully over the course of the last couple of days, because I knew this stellar core object would be coming back upward like this from below the ecliptic, and bingo, here we go. So on the this coronagraph here on the 16th, a few hours before midnight, 21:48:38 universal time, bingo, we have a very, very strange capture here. And I'm going to go over the information with you. I'm going to show you, this is a very, very odd looking photograph that came from the program. Cactus also picked it up a few hours later at exactly 2 a.m. 07 on the 17th, right here. Now the position is a little different because the coronagraph spacecrafts are a little bit different, so it kind of looks odd. But what we're going to see in this photograph right here is some very, very odd texture on the surface of this object. And here, once again, a very, very hot region. And again, it seems like a connection here to the sun. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to here. This is the 16th. Now, these are very, very clear photographs. Again, 93 million miles away from the sun, and with technology, we could actually see this. Without this technology, we wouldn't know what the hell was going on out there with our star, let alone finding a new object within our solar system. I mean, that's truly the amazing part. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the next photograph, and we can zoom in on this a little bit. Now, right after this image, in the very next frame, there was a large coronal mass ejection that occurred right here. You can actually see it starting. We could zoom in on that. And this is what I mean. There's some very weird looks to this object. It almost looks like there's pieces missing from it. We could zoom in a little further here. Now, remember that there's a lot of extreme activity going on at this point in time. The very beginnings of a large coronal mass ejection that lit this object up, and that allowed us to actually see it. So there may be some tricks of lighting, and also the way that the telescopic cameras and the program itself depicts and translates what it's seeing. But again, very, very odd looking. I've been studying this particular photograph for hours. Most of yesterday, I'm just looking at it, and just in absolute amazement. And we go ahead and back off just a little bit here. We could see this very intense region all through here. And whenever you're looking at this, you see the white. Well, the white color is hot. That's intensity. That is heat. So we may have gotten a little bit of distortion. Some of this odd looking textured area. It may be distortion from the heat, the light, who knows? That I just don't have a definitive answer on. The next photograph here, it came in this bluish tint, which is another level of ultraviolet light. And this showed us more intensity of heat right there. Dead center. It's almost like a triangular pattern right here. And again, maybe some tricks of light that is giving it this kind of odd look. I mean, I don't have any answers for that, folks. I really don't. Now, this one was interesting because that intensity that we saw, which was white right there, in this version of an X-ray, the dark black, that right there would be the intense heat. So at some point in time, this area right here was intensely heated up for some reason or another. You can actually start to see that it smooths out a little bit in this image. So there may be some distortions within the other photos. Because I was looking at it, I'm thinking, wow, that just doesn't look right. Looks kind of odd. And but again, you know, I don't have any answers for what caused that weird looking distortion. I mean, it kind of looks like some kind of textured surface, but I doubt very highly if we would be able to see that. So I'm leaning more towards the distortion from the heat, the light, and possibly even the movement of the object and how the program, I guess, like translates it. And that's what we got. So pretty incredible. And then here we go. On the 17th, a couple hours later, we have this being viewed on the cactus, and you can see the coronal mass ejection pull off from down below. And then at the same time, the cactus program actually outlined an additional coronal mass ejection, and it's outlined by these white lines. Pretty intense. Let's move over to the next photo. Now, in last week's premiere video, where we saw those incredible photographs of the sun either making a connection with this stellar core object or this object pulling plasma from the sun, it seems like the same thing is occurring right here. And this dark area would be an extremely hot area. Now, I can't say positively that that's an electrical connection or a plasma connection or part of the coronal mass ejection or all of it combined. See, if we look back to the photographs from last week, we see that same kind of connection. Is that outgassing? Is it an electrical connection? Is it a plasma connection? I mean, it's pretty much up in the air, anyone's guess, but the images are absolutely incredible. We could get a little bit of a closer view here, slightly blurry, but again, you could see this large loop, and that is right at the bottom of the sun. And what was kind of bugging me is when I was looking at this, the Cactus program is meant to pick up the coronal mass ejections and outline them. And it's outlined by those white lines. So the coronal mass ejection was picked up here, which didn't seem to be that intense. But it did not pick up this huge disturbance right at the base of the sun. And I would say, just by viewing this, that this explosive region here looks more intense than what is here and what the program, the Cactus program, actually picked up from the LASCO C2. But the image is undeniable. It's absolutely outstanding. And I've put both of these together. And again, this is coming from the date of 4/16, a few hours before midnight, 21:48:38, and then a few hours later, 4/17 at 2 a.m. And we're able to capture this object here. Now, in the course of the next couple of days, we're going to start to see this object move in this pattern here. And then it starts to get very, very close to the sun. So, within the next couple of days, we are going to see a lot of activity, possibly in the form of coronal mass ejections or X flares, because we just captured one right here, I believe not more than a day and a half, 2 days ago, right here. So we're actually going to see additional activity coming from about, I would say, the 4 o'clock position, then the 3 o'clock position, and then possibly the 2 o'clock position. This will all transpire in the course of, I would say anywhere from 7 to 10 days, probably more on the 7 days. And at the same time, we have this huge active region up here with those sunspots, and they're going to be turning this way. So everything is kind of moving to the right. So the sunspots are going to be coming in. They're going to be centering up with the Earth. So we'll see what happens then. And then this object's going to be making its way right up here. And we should continue to see a lot, and I mean a lot, of solar activity over the course of the next 2 weeks. There's a very high possibility that that activity is just not going to stop. Reason being is we are in this solar minimum or solar maximum. The intensity of the solar maximum is increasing. The interaction between that stellar core object and weak spots like these sunspots, well, hell, anything could happen. Anything. The weather around the world is just absolutely crazy. The weather here in Pittsburgh, part of the area where I live in the Pittsburgh area, just a few, what is it, maybe like about an hour and a half north of me, it's snow. Snow. Here I'm getting heavy rain, and the temperature is around 36 degrees. Yesterday it was kind of a cool day. The sun did come out for a little while late afternoon, but it was kind of cool. Day before that, it was beautiful, like a beautiful spring day. The weather is just so erratic. You don't know what to expect from day to day. That much is for sure. But I wanted all of you guys to see these incredible images, because these are truly incredible. All of my years watching and viewing the sun, researching the sun, I've seen big sunspots. But never have I seen 3 of them so large in a bunch like that. So we will see what happens over the course of the next several days as these sunspots move this way and they get closer to the center of the sun. Now they are in the northern hemisphere of the sun, north of the equatorial region, and the Earth is slightly below that middle part of the sun. But with a situation like this, with that massive region of activity and all of those sunspots, anything that pops off will affect the Earth in one way or another. Now, the coronal mass ejections, no problem. But the X-flares is what we would really worry about. Because X-flares with a very, very, very high intensity, well, that is just blasting the Earth with a very, very large amount of radiation. And the radiation is what we would definitely worry about. But I wanted to, bring all of you up to date. I had planned on doing a live stream on Saturday. I was kind of waiting for more data to come in, and then I got kind of tired. And Sunday was Easter holiday. I hope everybody had a fantastic time with your families. And I just kept continuing to watch and monitor what was occurring. We're over here at Space Weather. It says more sunspots are coming. Active sunspot complex region, AR 2993 and 94, which unleashed an X1 flare. Now, an X1 flare, really nothing to write home about. Kind of fun to look at, the images and so forth. But as you can see right over here, there are sunspots galore. They're everywhere. 2993, 2994. This sunspot has not been named for some reason. Sunspots over here, 2990, 2991. Yeah, they're just like everywhere. They're everywhere. Let's see what they have here. This should show the small X flare. Yeah, you can see it there. The little spot of white light, and then the X. Yeah, so that's not too bad. I mean, it could have been worse. The possibilities of it getting worse, well, it's all there. Let's see what they have here. Oh, this is just the extreme ultraviolet light, the 195. This gives you a flat version of what those sunspots look like. Really doesn't translate into much. Another fantastic photograph. Absolutely amazing images coming from the sunspot. Is it on the 16th? I wanted to go back here and I wanted to check something real quick, folks. Maybe it was on the 15th. See, we were already watching that for so many days now. The activity behind the sun on the far side, I mean, it was just popping left and right. I think we had a G2. Yeah, it was a G2 storm. This was the warning for it right here. Nothing, nothing really major to write home about. The CM tracker, the coronal mass ejection tracker, you can see what was let off on the back side of the sun. Pretty intense, pretty large. There's been a lot of activity, folks, a lot. Now, on the SEEDS program, they lost data. So I actually had no data for the 15th, 16th, or 17th, and it just came through. I don't know if they shut the satellites down to protect them, because they do that. But if you take a look at the 16th, very powerful. I'll speed it up a little bit. So you can see they're just popping off everywhere. And this is on the 16th. Boom, they're just everywhere. We could go back. We could take a look at the 17th, which was yesterday. And again, I'll blow this up a little bit so you guys can really see this. I mean, it's just one explosion after the next. And that was on the 17th. Pretty intense. So when these sunspots start to turn towards us, that is going to be the moment that I'll be watching, very, very, very carefully. I'll be watching for these X flares. As far as the space weather reports, they're kind of keeping a low tone on what's occurring. We have the aurora forecasts for both hemispheres, and they've actually been kind of say light in the sense of aurora. Last couple of weeks we've had some pretty intense aurora in the northern hemisphere. Seems this time around on the left side over here is the aurora in the southern hemisphere over Antarctica, and just a little more intense than the northern hemisphere. Now, as these sunspots move towards us, activity increases. Heavy flows of those extremely charged particles coming from that massive coronal hole in the middle of the sun that's facing us now. The aurora in the northern hemisphere should really light up. You may be able to see aurora as far as Pennsylvania, as far as the middle of the central part of the United States. We will definitely see. Forecast overview. This was for today. Moderate class flares likely throughout R1 and R2. Radio blackouts. There were some radio blackouts. I actually, 2 days ago, through one of these geomagnetic storms, out of nowhere, I lost power here at my home. I thought maybe there was an accident up on the road. Somebody hit a pole. Lights go out. Well, they were out for about an hour. And when they came back on, I turned on my local news, and there was about 120,000 people in my area that were without power. So I called the power company, and I said, "Hey, what occurred? Why do we have that power outage? Is the damage fixed, or was it somebody that hit a pole?" They had no answer for me whatsoever, and they said that, well, your power should be back on by now. And I said, so you guys don't know what caused that blackout? 120,000 people without power, and you don't know. So there was no accident. There was no accident anywhere around where I live. We were just at the peak part of a geomagnetic storm, and the power went out. Now, the electric company either shut the power off because of surges to protect the infrastructure, or something happened, because there's no explanation for why that power went out. So, it is what it is. Probably never know. And I noticed also that the internet, and I have extremely fast internet, and it was lagging, and it was very, very slow. But I wanted to take a quick look at the Solar Dynamics Observatory and check out the latest. And this is the region we're looking at right here. And you'll see those little pops. And the X flare is probably, this is only a 48-hour loop. That X flare, let's see if it shows it. Just a little bit. The X flares are hard to detect on the 304. This is 304 angstrom of ultraviolet light. Now, the one that you really can see X flares is the 131. So let's take a quick look and see what the 131 shows us. And again, we're looking right up here in this region. See, yeah, you could see the X, the little X pattern. Now, that was a big one. Big as far as intensity. Pretty interesting. Now, days before, we had one that popped right there that just literally came out of nowhere. So you can see as this turns within the next 48 hours, I would say, yeah, about 48 hours, it's going to be right about here, and we are right about there. So as that intensity and that radiation leaves the sun, well, it starts to pan outward. So it will capture the Earth, and we will see what happens. But again, folks, listen. It's not the end of the world. It's not the apocalypse. Not saying nothing won't happen, but again, this is just all science. We're learning what's happening. I want all of you to get used to the terminology that I'm using, and that way you guys understand. Again, remember that knowledge is power. And this is also very interesting. It may not be for everybody, space weather, but space weather is something that is up and coming. You're starting to hear more and more and more about it, and I think we should. But you could definitely see the intensity of that X flare. I want to just check one more thing out, and I'll let you guys go. Let's go all the way down here, and let's check this bad boy out. We have to use the browse feature. So we'll see, now you'll see the large patch of sunspots rotating right towards us. And all of these smaller areas that you see here, yellow and green, yellow and green, yellow and green, yellow and green, all stretched here, all stretched out over here. These are all active regions. Boy, that is a monster. I gotta say, folks, that is a very, very large sunspot patch. Let's check the 211. We have coronal holes opening here, coronal holes here, dissipating over here, large one here at the bottom. And you'll see some pops going on. You'll see that little pop of light And those are small coronal mass ejections occurring. But the main activity, right up there at that, just above the 9 o'clock position, going into the 10 o'clock position, left-hand side over there, that's where the monster patch of sunspots is. Wow, that coronal opening, that made its way all the way up to the northern pole of the sun. Closed up. Yeah, we're going to have some, we're going to have a lot to talk about. That much is for sure. This is the 171. This gives us a really, really good view of the plasma loops. And also, you'll get some very, very good views of these sunspots popping, filament releases, coronal mass ejections, things of that nature. But that is one hell of an active region up there, boy. Let me tell you. Going to be very, very interesting to watch over the course of the next couple of days. And I'm also hoping that, say within the next 5 to 7 days, as this object starts to make its way up, we already have the one capture down here. Normally around this area and this area, and sometimes up here, it will produce very large coronal mass ejections, and we're able to get more stellar core Planet X views. And you know, as soon as I get them, you guys will be the first to see them. But anyways, folks, listen, you know, nothing to get real freaky, crazy, scared about, but this is going to be very, very interesting to watch. And remember something. We're only in the beginning stages of this solar maximum. We're only in the beginning stages of the interaction with this stellar core and the sun while it is in this solar maximum. So we have a lot to research, a lot to investigate, and a lot to learn as this period goes on throughout this solar maximum. So this is going to be a very, very large learning curve. And we are going to see firsthand what the effects are going to be on the planet that we live in, that we call Earth. We're going to see what the interactions will be between these three: the Earth, the Sun, and that stellar core that we call Planet X. Ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay tuned, and if any additional information comes forth, you guys will be the first to know. Also, pay very close attention to the community tab right here on the Planet X News YouTube channel. I post a lot of information here as time goes on with spectacular pictures, full definitions of what's occurring, and this all has to do with the sunspots. This was the small X flare that occurred on the 17th that I mentioned, and there's information that's typed in there that gives you a brief description of what's happening. This area we just looked at. Now, if you happen to see a little arrow tab right here, click on it, because there's additional photographs there. And I put all of those photographs in there for you guys. It's just a way of me keeping in touch with you guys, you know, quick. You don't have to sit here and listen to my long-winded videos. You could read the information real quick. You could see what's happening and so on and so forth. But always pay attention to this community tab right there. All of the information on space weather will be there. And I gave everybody a quick peek at the images that were coming at. And again, little arrow tab. And I put a bunch of the photographs right in there for everybody to check out. All right. So listen, folks, I'm out of here. I'm going to go ahead and do some more research, check some things out, and stay tuned to Planet X. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure your notifications are set up. All of that good stuff. And I'll see you soon. Take care, folks.